Hello, welcome to the review lesson on solving absolute value equations. If you have any additional questions after the lesson, please feel free to add a question on the main lesson page on the website or go to the resource page on the website where you will find additional videos that explore this topic in a little bit more depth. First, let's take a look at solving absolute value equations. An absolute value is the distance a number is from zero. The symbol for an absolute value is two vertical bars on either side of the value. So for example, we have the absolute value of 5, the absolute value of -8. We want to know for the absolute value of 5, how far is 5 from 0? That is 5 spaces. For the absolute value of -8, we want to know how far is -8 from 0? That is 8 spaces. Remember that a distance is always positive, so the absolute value will always be a positive value. Let's take a look at solving absolute value equations. If we have the absolute value of x is equal to 12, we want to know what number is 12 steps away from 0. So when we solve this type of equation, we want to split our equation into two possibilities. We look at the positive direction and we look at the negative direction. So we have x is equal to 12 or x is equal to -12. These are our two possibilities. If I plug in 12 for x, I have the absolute value of 12 equals 12. That is true. 12 is 12 spaces away from 0. If I plug in the absolute value of -12, the absolute value of -12 is 12. It's just 12 spaces away from 0 in the opposite direction. If I have the absolute value of x is equal to 9, or the absolute value of x is equal to 2/7, or the absolute value of x is equal to -4. So we're going to take a look at each of these individually. Here I have first I have the absolute value of x is equal to 9. So we have two possibilities, x equals 9 or x equals -9. Both of those work. If I plug in 9 for x, the absolute value of 9 is 9. The absolute value of -9 is also 9, therefore both are solutions. If we take a look at the absolute value of x is equal to 2/7, again we want to look at the positive and the negative option. So x is either 2/7 or -2/7. If I plug these back in, both will work. Now, if I look at the absolute value of x equals -4, this does not work. The absolute value is a distance away from 0, always a positive value, so it can never equal a negative number. Therefore, there are no solutions. Now let's take a look when it's a little bit more complicated. We have the absolute value of 2x plus 4 is equal to 24. Now here, the absolute value is a distance. So we're looking at the distance in a positive direction and the distance in the negative direction. So we're going to take our equation and set it equal to the positive direction and then set it equal to the negative direction. So we have 2x plus 4 is equal to positive 24. That means that we're moving to the right. And then 2x plus 4 is equal to -24, which means that we're moving to the left. So I'm going to solve each equation separately. Now, if I look at 2x plus 4 equals 24, first I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So I'll get 2x equals 20, divide by 2, and we get x is equal to 10. Now, if I take a look at 2x plus 4 equals -24, when I subtract 4 from both sides, I'm going to get 2x equals -28, divide by 2, and we get x is equal to -14. So I have two possibilities for x, 10 and -14. Let's take a look at another example. Here I have the absolute value of x minus 3, then -6 is equal to 2. So in order to look at the positive and negative values, we have to get that absolute value by itself first. So I'm going to go ahead and add 6 to both sides. So I get the absolute value of x minus 3 is equal to 8. Now I'm going to take a look at the distance going to the right and the distance going to the left. So we have x minus 3 equals 8 and x minus 3 equals negative 8. To solve the first equation, I want to add 3 to both sides, so I get x is equal to 11. For the second equation, I want to add 3 to both sides as well. Negative 8 plus 3 is equal to negative 5. So my two values for x are x equals 11 and x equals negative 5. For our next example, we have the absolute value of 3x. Outside the absolute value, plus 2 is equal to 8. Again, in order to split my equation, I need to have the absolute value alone on the left-hand side. So I want to subtract 2 from both sides. So we get the absolute value of 3x is equal to 6. So the absolute value means that it's the distance away to 0. So it could go to the right, meaning that 3x equals 6, or it could go to the left, so 3x could equal negative 6. To solve the first equation, I want to divide by 3, and we get x is equal to positive 2. For the second equation, I also want to divide by 3, but negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. For our last example, we see something a little bit more complicated. We have 5 times the absolute value of x plus 7 plus 2 is equal to 17. My goal is to get the absolute value by itself, then split it, and solve each equation separately. So my first step in getting the absolute value by itself is to subtract 2 from both sides. We get 5 times the absolute value of x plus 7 equals 15. Divide both sides by 5. And we get the absolute value of x plus 7 is equal to 3. So our distance away from 0 is 3. That means it can go to the right, x plus 7 equals 3, or it can go to the left, x plus 7 equals negative 3. To solve the first equation, I want to subtract 7 from both sides. So 3 minus 7 is negative 4. We get x equals negative 4. Then for the second equation, I also want to subtract 7 from both sides. Negative 3 minus 7 is negative 10. Again, if you have any questions about solving absolute value equations, please ask on the main lesson page. If you would like additional resources, click the resource tab and you can access additional videos there. Thanks.